My name is Anna Ulette. I am 34 years old, and my daughter Mia is 8. What I am about to tell you happened on Christmas Eve last year, and I have turned it over my mind almost every night since. Not because I regret what I did, but because of the question Mia asked me in the car afterward, and the truth I had to find words for while the highway lights passed over us in the dark. The morning started the way good mornings do, quietly and without warning of what was coming. At 7 o'clock, soft winter light was coming through Mia's curtains, and she was already awake, sitting cross-legged on her bedroom rug in her star-print pajamas, humming to herself. The song was Once Upon a Dream. Her father, Daniel, used to sing it to her slowly before bed, drawing out the way you do when you want a moment to last. She was making a Christmas card for her grandparents. A lopsided tree, a dog we have never owned, and a stick figure her grandmother with a smile so wide it nearly ran off the page. I was in the kitchen packing the brown, leather bag Daniel gave me the day I opened my law practice. It has a brass clip that makes a small clicking sound when it closes, and I have always found that sound satisfying in the way that reliable things are satisfying. Inside the bag, I placed 5 envelopes for my office. I am not going to tell you what was in them yet, because I want you to feel the weight of them the way the people in that dining room felt it later. Mia came padding and wearing her socks and asked me, with a particular seriousness she has carried since she was 4 years old, whether her grandma and grandpa liked presents. I put down what I was holding and crouched to her level. She has had that serious face since 2022, which was a year Daniel stopped coming home from the hospital. He was 38 years old and had pancreatic cancer, and Mia was 4, and since then she has looked at the world with the careful attention of someone who has already learned that it can change without notice. I told her that everyone likes presents, especially the one she draws herself. I tucked her card into bag and clicked it shut. Looking back, I understand what she was really asking. Even an 8-year-old can feel when she is not wanted in a house. I chose, that morning, to believe things would be different. I packed the gingerbread I had baked in all of her hopes and drove us out toward my parents' house with the winter sky flat and pale above the highway. Let me tell you enough about our life for the rest of this to make sense. Daniel and I met in 2014. He taught high school science with the kind of genuine enthusiasm that made students remember him years later. I was a young attorney doing family law for clients who couldn't afford much. We married in 2017 in a barn in autumn, and Mia was born that winter during a snowstorm, which Daniel took as a sign that she would be remarkable. He was right, though he didn't have enough time to see most of it. After he died, I worked with the focused, almost ferocious energy of someone who needs to be tired enough to sleep. My practice grew. I now have 11 attorneys working with me and earn around $420,000 a year. Daniel left Mia $400,000 in life insurance. I have not spent a cent of it. It sits untouched in an account for her education or for whatever she decides she needs when she is grown. Every gift I have ever given my family has come from my own earnings, from the years of long weeks and hard cases, and the particular exhaustion of doing work that matters. The drive to my parents' house takes about 90 minutes. Mia fell asleep in the back seat, and my leather bag sat beside her. I had texted Vanessa a few days earlier to explain that if the evening became overwhelming for Mia, I might need to leave early with her. I told her this was not rudeness. It was just how Mia's nervous system worked, the legacy of grief in a small body. Vanessa sent back a thumbs-up emoji. I took that as understanding. I was wrong. I also booked a hotel room nearby, just in case. I do this now. I keep an exit prepared, not because I plan to use it, but because Daniel's death taught me that preparation is not pessimism. It is the only honest response to knowing that things can go wrong. We passed the school where Daniel used to teach. After he died, his students raised money for a bench with his name on it in the courtyard. Not one member of my family came to the dedication. My mother said it was too far to drive. We arrived at 4:15, for cars were already in the driveway, and the Christmas tree was lit in the front window. Mia woke up and looked at the house for a long moment without saying anything, tracing slow circles on the car window with her finger. I carried the cookies. She carried her card, held in both hands. My mother pat opened the door in a holiday sweater and pearls. She looked at Mia first, and I saw the expression I had seen before. Not dislike exactly, but its quieter, more deniable cousin, a kind of disappointed assessment. From the kitchen, Vanessa called out, asking whether I had brought the cookies. My brother-in-law, Wade, sitting in the living room, raised a hand in a gesture that was technically a wave. Mia's fingers found the back of my coat and held on. Inside, my niece Eden and nephew Beckett were on the sofa with their tablets. Mia went to the coffee table and placed her drawing down for them to see. Beckett didn't look up. He said he didn't care about art. Vanessa told him to be nice, and he glanced at the drawing for a moment before returning to his screen. Mia stood there absorbing this, and I watched her understand something that no child should understand in a grandparent's house, that she was not a guest here so much as a condition that some people were tolerating. Then Eden put her tablet down. She slid off the sofa and sat on the floor next to Mia and asked what she was drawing. She asked if she could add a snowman. In a room full of adults who should have known better, a 9-year-old was the only one who simply saw another child and moved toward her. I made a quiet promise to myself in that moment to always protect Eden, whatever else happened. In the kitchen, Vanessa was at the counter with wine, telling me she had already informed her kids I was bringing gifts and asking me not to be dramatic about it. I asked, as calmly as I could, that they please not tease Mia for being quiet, that she was still finding her way through things, and quiet wasn't a flaw. My mother looked at me and said nobody had a problem with Mia being quiet. They had a problem with my attitude. I didn't respond. It was one of those moments where the most useful thing I could do was say nothing and remember everything. The dining room had name cards. My mother had placed me at the far end of the table, in the corner, away from the center of conversation. In a particular position, you put someone when you want them present without being visible. Mia's place was at a small separate table for children, set apart from mine by enough distance that she would not easily be able to catch my eye. Before anyone sat down, Eden moved her plate and her glass and her name card to the small table and sat down beside Mia. I have thought about that small act many times in the months since. It was the most graceful thing anyone did that evening. When everyone was seated, Mia began to hum. She does this when she is nervous, finds a melody she is most familiar with and holds onto it quietly, like a hand in the dark. My mother leaned across the table and asked me to tell her to stop because it was bothering people. I went to Mia, sang a few soft bars of the song with her, smoothed her hair, and went back to my seat. The silence that followed had a texture to it. My father, Hugh, gave a speech about family and gratitude that did not once include Mia or me in its gaze. I watched his eyes move around the table and skip over us both as though we occupied a different frequency. Wade gave a toast. Vanessa gave a speech about how much she contributes to keeping the family together. When it came to me, I raised my glass and said that Daniel would have loved seeing Mia this Christmas. My mother turned to Vanessa and whispered, just audibly enough, asking why I always had to bring him up, as though 3 years were sufficient time to stop mentioning a man who was still shaping every day of his daughter's life, as though his name were an inconvenience. My Uncle Robert asked about my practice during dinner. I told him we were working with families who had lost a primary earner, the kind of work Daniel would have found meaningful. Vanessa interrupted to tell Mia to go play in the other room because the adults were talking. I said that Mia was part of the family. My mother set down her fork and told me that I needed to stop acting like a widow because I was still young, that Daniel hadn't really built anything lasting, and that I was keeping myself frozen in a past that was already gone. Wade laughed quietly at something I didn't catch. I sat with what I wanted to say and chose not to say it. Then Mia reached across the small table, and her elbow caught her water glass. It went over, and the wave of it carried a bowl of cranberry sauce with it. And for a moment, everything was the deep red of cranberries spreading across a white tablecloth. Vanessa pushed back her chair. My mother said the dining room was not a playroom. They spoke to me as though Mia had done something deliberate, as though an 8-year-old had planned to disrupt their evening. Mia's face went very still in the way it goes when she is deciding not to cry. I took her to the bathroom to clean her sweater. While I was kneeling in front of her, working at the stain with a damp cloth, I felt Daniel's letter through the side of my bag. I have carried it for 3 years. I read it again while Mia looked at herself in the mirror. He had written it during the last weeks when he still had clarity and energy, and he had written it carefully. He said he knew my mother. He said she would find ways to make Mia feel that something was wrong with her and that I should not let her. He said kindness is not a debt, and that if it came to it, I should take Mia and our dignity and walk out. He reminded me that the door was always mine to open. We went back to the table. The conversation stopped when we entered, which told me they had been talking about us. Vanessa cleared her throat. She said she needed to address something directly, that Mia was not right, that her behavior was affecting everyone, and that something should be done about it. My mother agreed and said she knew children, had raised children, and that Mia was clearly off in a way that needed attention. I felt something become very cold and very precise inside me. I said that what Mia's behavior reflected was a particular heaviness of losing her father at 4 years old, and that quiet and careful were not the same as broken. Wade said that Daniel had always been off and awkward too, and that maybe it was something she had inherited. That was the sentence. I have held a lot of things in that room over many years. I did not hold that one. I said that being quiet meant you were listening, and that Daniel had been the best listener I had ever known, and that Mia came by it honestly, and I was proud of her for it. My father made a small, insufficient attempt to redirect the conversation. He has always been afraid of my mother in a way that some people are afraid of weather. He moves around her rather than standing in it. Vanessa said we should leave and not come back. My mother said Christmas was better without us there. I stood up. I reached into my leather bag and took out the 5 envelopes. I told them I had brought Christmas gifts and that I wanted to share them before we went. I laid out what was inside. A check for $75,000 for my parents, covering the new roof their house needed and the ongoing cost of my father's medication. A check for $120,000 for Vanessa and Wade to retire the debt on their cabin. An envelope for Eden's school fees and Beckett's hockey program. And the last one, $200,000 that I had designated for Vanessa's new business, the store she had been talking about opening for 2 years and had said she couldn't afford without help. I let them look at the numbers. I let the room understand what was sitting on the table. Then I tore every check in half. I tore the halves again. I set the pieces down on the tablecloth next to the cranberry stain that was still spreading slowly into the weave of the linen. I told them that since Christmas was better without me, it stood to reason it was better without my money as well. I took out my phone and sent a message to my business partner, canceling the transfers that had been prepared and waiting. I looked at my father and told him he should have spoken louder. I picked up Mia's coat and held it open for her. The sound that came from that room as we walked through the hallway and out the front door were not sounds I'm going to describe in detail. I will only say that they were nothing like the sounds of people who believe Christmas was better without us. Mia was quiet in the car for a long time. The hotel was 20 minutes away, and for most of that drive she looked out the window at the passing lights. Then she asked me whether her grandmother was sad because of her, whether something she had done, the water or the humming or something she hadn't noticed, had caused the evening to go the way it did. I pulled over. I turned in my seat and looked at her. I told her no. I told her that her grandmother was carrying sadness that had nothing to do with Mia, and that it was not Mia's job to carry for her, or to fix it, or to make herself smaller, so that it would be easier for other people to be around her. I told her that her humming was one of my favorite sounds, and that her father would have said the same thing, and that anyone who found it bothersome was someone who had stopped listening for beauty in ordinary places. She thought about this for a while. Then she nodded, with that serious face of hers, and looked back out the window. At the hotel we made hot chocolate with the little packets from the coffee station, with too many marshmallows, and we put on a film and sat on the bed with the blankets pulled up. Mia fell asleep before the ending. I sat in the quiet of the room listening to her breathe, which is something I do when I need to remember what matters. It has been a year since that evening. We have not gone back. My mother has sent letters which I have kept unopened in a folder, not as weapons, but as a record. Eden comes to visit us and always asks Mia to show her whatever she is drawing, and Mia always does. My uncle told me some months later that the cranberry stain never fully came out of the tablecloth, no matter what they tried. I have thought about that more than he probably intended me to. Mia is doing beautifully. She is sharp and imaginative, and she still hums to herself when she is happy or nervous or thinking hard about something. She drew a picture recently of a hotel room with 2 people under blankets watching television and a mug on each bedside table. She gave it to me without explanation and went back to whatever she was working on. I put in a frame. Daniel told me in his letter that kindness is not a debt. He was right about that. But he was also right about the door, that it is always mine to open, that walking through it is not failure or surrender, but simply the accurate understanding that some rooms were never meant to hold you, and that the right response to being asked to leave is to leave so completely, so quietly, and with such totality, that the people who asked spent a long time afterward understanding exactly what they said. The brass clip on my leather bag still makes that small clicking sound when it closes. I still find it satisfying. Some things, at least, remain exactly what they are,